What's going on, family? Willie Moore Jr. here, my sister Brittany. And right now we're hanging out with author, clothing designer, and empowerment speaker, Reginald Foreman. What's going on, Reggie?
I'm doing great. I'm just happy to be here.
Man, we are so glad to have you here. Such a compelling story. I was on YouTube and I was watching you speak, and then I got a chance to catch you on another Christian network, man, and you were telling your story about how you came from the bottom and now you're here. But it started off kind of rocky. You started off very young and you participated in a bank robbery. How did that come about?
Well, growing up in Miami, Florida, I was living with my father, and my mother was in Chicago. Ended up in a bank robbery because my father disappeared. He was messing with drugs and everything like that, and I started to fend for myself and got with the wrong crowd, and he left me with a house, and I didn't want to move. I wanted to do it myself. So I got around the wrong crowd, and the guy that I was hanging with, he was a big-time robber. He robbed malls and stores and stuff. So I came to him with the idea of a bank because I was watching it. And with that encouragement, I ended up robbing a bank.
Wow. How important is it to have like good friends around you when you're making those? How important is the crowd that's around you? How important is the friends that you choose?
Oh, it's very serious because you hear the saying, 5 people around you, you become like them.
Yeah.
And being around those guys that I hung with, we all didn't have a purpose. We didn't have a focus. I'm saying that we grew up the same, but a lot of us didn't have our mother and father in our lives and let us do what we want to do. So you become who you're around. You talk like them, act like them, walk like them, even dress like them. So it's very important to watch who you're around all the time.
Yeah. And so after that happened, you got caught and you had to go to jail. Like, what was that experience like? And how did you encounter God in the midst of that?
Well, that experience was very serious for me because I got illegally sentenced to 18 and a half years for bank robbery. They charged me in state and federal. 9.5 years, 9 years. I was supposed to only get charged in federal. So my first time ever really being incarcerated, I had 18 and a half years at 20 years old.
Wow. So
it was very serious for me. And in the midst of that, how I accepted Christ, a lot of people say in prison that people find God. I obeyed God in prison.
Wow.
You know, God had a lot of instances on the streets before I got locked up about God. And while I was in prison, I was in a cell. And because I grew up being abused, bullied by gangs, I really had it out with God. I was cursing. I tell people my straight up story. I was, God, where were you when they were chasing me home? Where were you when mother was abusing me? Where were you when I was suicidal? And through the midst of that anger and pain, I heard God show me clearly I had a purpose. I have a purpose for you. And I didn't know it would lead to this platform helping people from their purpose, from their pain into purpose. So that's how me and God had it out, and he heard me.
I think what you just said is so key because I've had moments where I've had it out with God because he already knows your heart. I think a lot of people kind of have like, whether they have the background of God or not, whether they went to church or not, some people kind of feel guilty about like having it out with God. Tell everyone, because I really feel like, for me anyway, when I just let him have it, it was then that he could really start to talk to me. It was then that I really, like, I got it out. And then he still loved me. And he was still like, okay, well, now that you got that out of your system and you got rid of the bitterness and the hatred and all that, let me show you some things. Is that kind of a similar thing that happened with you when you just got it all out there?
Well, for me, I find out that people are not really, like I call it the shower prayers. You pray real quick. No, God, when you're really empty and you're tired and ready, that's when you can hear him. He knows when you're not all the way there. So I was facing 18 and a half years, not just the time, didn't have a mother, didn't have a father, didn't have any visits. I was suicidal. So I'm like, God, where are you? So if I want to read this Bible, I want to know what happened in the past. So a lot of people are held back from their past. You know, where were you when my mother was molested, when my father was molested? It's a lot of pain out there. So I believe that once you're at that edge of letting down your wall, God knows, okay, now I can tell you the next step.
That's good.
Not just give you a Band-Aid over a wound.
And one last thing, do you think that that long sentence was almost, in hindsight, like kind of a godsend? Like, do you think that if it would have been something shorter and in and out, or is it hard to say because that wasn't your story?
It's hard to say. Like, people ask me because I was let out of prison for 3 years, and they said my mistake and came back and got me. So my story gets worse.
Wait a minute. So wait a minute. Let me kind of understand this. They let you out of prison, and you're free for 3 years. And they say, oh, I made a mistake, and now you have to go back to prison?
Yes. In the midst of I was illegally sentenced, I went back to court for the state charge, and they overturned the 9 years, and they sentenced me for 3 years. But when I was supposed to go to federal prison, I went back to another state prison, and when it was time to pack up, the federal prison never came and got me. And I went I got out of Miami, Florida. I said, I'm not going back to prison. Moved to St. Louis with my church and family. And 3 years later, knock at the door, U.S. Marshal said, you were let out of prison erroneously by mistake.
Erroneously.
They said erroneously by mistake. After I changed my life, trusting God, I was dating
saved?
my pastor's daughter. Yeah, I was about to be the deacon in the church.
Wow.
So this is so big when I talk to people about really knowing how do you trust God when it really comes down. When you really got to say, do I still love God after this prayer didn't get answered? Or the person I prayed for didn't get healed? Or I didn't get this job? Or it can get serious. And for me, it's why I'm able to speak to people and they can say, well, if he made it and he's still trusting, oh, it was hard.
Yeah.
Like you said about that sentence. I don't know if I could needed to have that, but I found out really who God was when it was just really me and him, and now I can call my aunt and somebody can know I only had God.
So now let's fast forward. You go through that, and I'm sure you had it out with God again. Like, God, I've been free, and now I got to go back to do this. Then you finally get out, and you're free. How hard was it for you to get back on your feet? You know, being a convicted felon, having trust in the Lord, but then were you forced to do your own business, or would people give you a job? Like, how did God make everything you're doing now?
Like, live with the confidence that they're not going to come back again and say, oh, by the way. You know, because I feel like that doesn't happen very often.
Exactly.
Was there a fear that ever tried to creep in when you were actually free?
No, that wasn't because I was put on probation.
Okay.
The system really showed, you know, I knew that I had just beat the feds and whatever when they let me, not knowing they would come and get me because I thought a miracle happened.
Yeah.
But this time you're on probation, you took the steps.
Got it.
And as far as the business and doing everything, it was hard to get a job because I have a federal record.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard. A lot of companies won't hire. I had for a gun, I robbed a bank. So it was a lot of different jobs. The business came about because of doing my purpose. I'm an artist. And God spoke to me through people. And I put some designs on a t-shirt. It was hard to get help. But every time it's hard, I lean more on God.
That's true.
So I definitely think it was purposeful that nobody really wanted to help me, and it pushed me closer to my purpose. But it was hard, but it helps you stretch. It helps you pray more. That's why I always tell people when they're telling me they want to give up and do this, I'm saying that God wants to stretch you because you first need to know it's not a hobby. I started off as a hobby. It wasn't a business at first. I was just selling t-shirts out the back of my truck. And then a friend came to me. That's why I tell people, receive the information that someone gives you. A friend came to me and said, do you have a website? Do you have business cards? I said, no. He said, well, how do you expect to compete on a level with these serious people? You don't even have that. So I took $1,000 income tax, not $20,000, not $5,000, got a website, and I switched. This is the key. I switched my shirts from just being words on a shirt because I'm a Christian. I made designs that people like, fashion, dopeness. And I got orders from Africa, and I got an order from France. I was like, oh my God. I really knew, but at the same time, I had to learn how to run a business. Because now I'm just a gift, and I got this hustle in me. But how do you run a business? Do you know what you're doing? You know how to scale it. You know how to run a business. Still learning. But I knew that I had confidence that someone wanted my product.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's good stuff. Reggie Foreman hanging out. And so now you have the clothing. That's becoming successful. People around the country are booking you to speak. You get national and international platforms on television. And you say, you know what, I'm going to put my stuff in this book, right? You're going to put your words in this book. Tell the people a little bit more about this book that you have entitled Live Determined.
This is my book, Live Determined. Don't let your struggles bully your dreams.
Don't let your struggles bully your dreams.
So
and the title right here, God gave it to me clear as day because I grew up being bullied. And I quickly, if you think about you want to start a business, and as soon as you get ready to start it, a bill pops up, or the car breaks down, or somebody talks to you, that's a struggle trying to stop you. Just like a bully tries to oppose you and to force you to do something they want you to do. So that's where that came from. I actually ran from God for 2 years. I didn't want to write a book. I just wanted to be this big faith-based fashion designer like Ralph Lauren or like Sean John and all that. And God kept saying people want to hear your story. I'm like, but look, God, when I'm in Paris, I'm at these stores, I'll sell more books. I was more concerned about me being financial and putting out. God said they need to hear your story. So long story short, I spoke at Aeneas Williams Hall of Fame in St. Louis, 200 plus men, my first big crowd, and everybody kept asking, where's your book? We want to know more about your story. But in the midst of that, my sales were going down at the clothing line. God was like pushing me into my destiny. So the book came about, people were asking about it and they needed it, and then I put in here steps about how I came out of prison, how I overcame, how did I renew my mind. It needed everything. That's why I said I'm an empowerment speaker. I don't want to just get people hype. I want them to walk out their situation and keep walking.
Reggie, in closing, just as we wrap up, right now, so many people across the country are watching it. Even some people are watching right now behind the walls of prison. We get so much mail and so many messages from people who are down and out, and they made big mistakes. And some people are actually innocent behind the wall. When they get out, how important is it for them to have a plan? Speak a message of encouragement to the nation of people who are behind the wall.
Well, my first thing is always knowing God. I mean, I'm not a religion pusher, but God, relationship is very powerful. And then we need support. You need someone. I moved to St. Louis purposely to have accountability, because I knew me. If I stay out on the streets too long, I'm going to do something, try to make money. So I need accountability. But in that, knowing that you're created in God's image, you're created in the matchless image of God. When I read this at 19 on the bunk, and I was reading to God in Genesis 1:26, 1:27, jumped out that God created me in his image. So I'm like, wow, the guy that was picked on because I was too dark-skinned, I had acne in my face, my mother was a prostitute on drugs, my father had torn. I was created in God's image. So he spoke to me through that. So if everybody understands, you can't be thrown away. You're creating God's image. Now it's for you to accept it, though. We can preach to each other all day long. You can let it go here and say, oh, what is that? So once you receive that there's a purpose for you, you'll realize that, okay, I don't have to do crime. If Reggie can do it, I can do it. Oprah can do it. Whoever you want to think about, they would bleed the same blood. You can be successful, and God is even better.
Indeed. Reggie Foreman, listen, I'm inspired by you, man. Love the God Made clothing line. Love the awesome book. And I appreciate that you're inspiring people and empowering people with your story. And you're so transparent. I believe God's going to take you places you've never seen before in your life.
Now, where, if people want to, I know you have a website, are you on social media? Tell people where they can find out more. Obviously, the book they can go buy in stores, but what about you, just if they want to find something in this very moment?
Well, my website is reginaldforeman.com. It's simple. If you want to, Instagram is Reginald_Foreman. Facebook is Reginald Godly Image Foreman. But if you go to reginaldforeman.com, it has all my links. And you can just Google me, Reginald Foreman.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. I know that you sharing your story is impacting so many people, and it's such an honor to meet you and just see obedience in action. I absolutely love it. That's why I love this show. It's amazing.
I love it.
Anyways, don't go anywhere, guys. We have a lot more top 3 coming up right after this.
Awesome.